Well, hey, everybody, Pastor Steve with you. Thank you for joining me for today's devotion, whether you're watching the video on YouTube or another platform or listening to the podcast. I really appreciate you being part of this. We are wrapping up the book of Jonah today as we end the week, and I just want to remind you, make sure you're planning to be in church Sunday, worshiping Jesus with us. Here at First Baptist, 3 services, contemporary services at 8:30 and 11 o'clock, and then our traditional service in the middle at 9:45. And pray that God will give you an opportunity today to invite someone, today or tomorrow, to invite someone to come to church to worship with you. All right, Jonah chapter 4. After reading this chapter and thinking about it and praying about it, the heading that I wrote in my journal for this chapter is when Christians get mad at God because of His great mercy. Nineveh, as you know, heard Jonah's message. God was going to judge them, destroy them unless they repented, and they repented. And of course, God relented of the judgment, did not destroy the city. And Jonah did not like that at all. In verse 1, the Bible says that it greatly displeased Jonah, and he became angry. Angry because God forgave them, angry because He spared them and did not destroy them. And in verse 5, Jonah went out from the city, sat east of it. So he goes outside the city and to the east of the city, sits down on a hill, if you will. And there he made a shelter for himself, something to protect him from the sun, and sat under it in the shade until he could see what would happen in the city. In other words, after God forgave them, he goes out there and sits down looking at the city, hoping God changes his mind and destroys them anyway. Wow. He really wasn't surprised at God's mercy because in chapter 4, verse 2, he said, Lord, when you first asked me to come here and preach to them, I ran away toward Tarshish because at the end of verse 2, I knew that you are a gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger and abundant in loving kindness and one who relents concerning calamity. God, I knew this is what you would do if they repented. I didn't want it to happen, so I ran away. Then you sent that storm and that fish, and you made me come, and I repented, and I came, and I obeyed you, and they repented and got saved. And God, the truth is, my heart hadn't changed that much because I'm still just not happy about it. And you remember what he was sitting out there under that shelter in the sun. God let a plant grow up to add more shade, and then the next day God sent worms and ate the plant. And in the book of Jonah, Jonah had more compassion for that dead plant than he did in the 120,000 people who lived in the city of Nineveh. What are we to make of that? Jonah was a prophet. He's mentioned one other time in the Old Testament, actually. He was a prophet. And I imagine in many, many ways, Jonah was a very good man. But he had one really big blind spot. He had one really big ungodly flaw in his character. And like many of the Jews of his day, and even some in Jesus' day, he allowed the pride that grew because they were God's chosen people. We're special. God chose us. We're special. Allowed the pride from that to get to the point they thought they were better than others. Even though the Old Testament makes clear God did not choose the Jews because they were better than anybody. He simply lovingly chose them to be His nation, His people. But pride took over. And that pride combined with their dislike, their hatred, if you will, of the Ninevites, of the Assyrians, of that other nation, meant that Jonah had no compassion for them and was upset with God, mad at God when they got saved and became brothers, if you will. You know, I've known people in church like that. In the early days of my ministry in Rock Hill, when we were first starting to grow, I remember one man getting upset, and he made the comment because some people were joining our church, and he said, "We don't need people like that in our church." In 2021, we would not say it that way, but we today There are groups we really dislike a lot. People who are of a different political persuasion than us, people who are of a different race than us, people who have a different philosophy than us. On and on we can go. And if we're not careful, we can get to the point that we actually hate them and rejoice when they get in trouble. Instead of having compassion and lovingly sharing the gospel with them. You know, if you and I prayed for the people we talk about, if we shared Jesus' love genuinely with them as much as we criticize them, it might surprise us what all would happen, what God would do. I guess what I'm saying is Jonah, as a man, can be a warning to us to be careful that we don't allow our emotions to make us ungodly at the very moment we're claiming to be God's people. John 3:16, God so loved the world, and you know that world includes those you don't like. God so loved the world. What did he do? He gave his only begotten Son. He gave Jesus, that whoever believes in him would not perish but have everlasting life. God said, I'm making it possible for them to be forgiven just like I did the Ninevites. And you should have compassion for them because I have compassion for them. And you don't deserve my love any more than they do. All of you out there, God says, are created in my image. And I love all of you. And Jesus died for all of you. So start acting like it. That's the word for today. I'll see you Sunday in church and then Monday with another devotion. Let's see here. Monday we are in the book of Daniel. So go ahead and read chapter 1 of Daniel before Monday morning. God bless you. I'll see you then.